Okay. I'm just getting this up. I'm going to give it another minute so that people come in and then we'll get going. Hi, I'm Hillary. Welcome back. This is Intro to JavaScript Animation. Just making sure everyone knows that they're in the right thing. Though I recognize names, so. Okay. So week 2, your first drawing. We're going to do a little bit review from last week, just in case anybody wants some review. So what is code? Code is the most basic language of computers, and there are about 700 different languages that are used, but only about 245 are actually used and notable. So there are 700 languages total across all computers, about, give or take. New languages are keep being made, and some just keep going out of style, like how I mentioned Java last time. And so that's why I say there's about 245 actual notable languages, because that's 245 languages that are commonly used, even though some are not so commonly used. They're just there. Colors. RGB, which stands for red, green, blue. The colors RGB come in a range from 0 to 255. Solid black would be 0, 0, 0, or 0 red, 0 green, 0 blue. Whereas white would be, because if we remember from science class, and if you haven't had science class that has taught you this yet, bright white light is actually all the colors combined. So it's 255 red, 255 blue, green, and then 255 blue. How you remember RGB is how you remember what order they're in is in the name. RGB. R is red, G is green, and B is blue. So solid red would be 255, 0, 0, and solid green would be 0, 255, 0. Whereas solid blue would be 0, 0, 255. Any questions so far? Okay, moving on. How do we code a rectangle? So coding a rectangle follows a formula that is going to be commonly used throughout the entire rest of this process, just in code. So it's rect, which is a shortened version of rectangle, with a parenthesis, x, y. That is the coordinate that the rectangle's top, that the rectangle is going to start from. The rectangle is always going to start from, it's going to go x, y. And most people, when they're thinking of a graph, right, they're thinking of this graph. They're like, okay, so 0 is going to be at the bottom and the highest number is going to be at the top. But in most instances, say for very select few times, it is actually going to be the 0 is going to be at the top. And that's the program we're going to use today is going to have the 0 at the top. And the y is going to be standard 0 through this, starting from left to right, which is pretty standard. And then you have width and height. That is the width of the rectangle and then the height of the rectangle, going from left to right and then top to bottom. That is how the rectangle is going to be formed. Next, the ellipse. If you're wondering what an ellipse is, it is an oval or a circle. I like to use ellipse for all of my circular shapes, whether that be an oval or a circle, just because it is consistent and it is the easiest one to remember. An ellipse is so as you write the forward ellipse, E-L-L-I-P-S-E, parenthesis, width divided by 2, comma, because this comma separates the numbers. Width divided by 2. So say you wanted a width of 10, you would put 5 and then want a height of say 10 because we're making a circle. Then you're going to put 5. So it'd be 5, 5, and then you'd put the size. For a triangle, it's actually, you're going to write out the word triangle, and then you're going to write out each individual code, like each individual coordinate. So 1x and 1y would be the top spot. And then we have 2x, 2y. It would be another point on the triangle. And then the x3, y3 is another point on the triangle. So you're putting each individual placement for the triangle. So now we're going to get into today's lesson. Okay, I'm going to send a link to the chat, and then we'll continue on. Okay. Okay, I sent that to the whole chat. Okay, and I'm using this because what we're currently learning is JavaScript, and it is one of the only free places and one where you can do coding, because unfortunately, a lot of places involve you paying for space, and workplaces and are also more confusing to use. And since we're doing beginner stuff, I figured use the most basic thing you can. And if I'm correct, you should be able to use it on multiple devices. Or we don't have to use it right now. I'm going to continue on, and then we'll come back to it. But there's the link. Okay. So we're going to look at some examples. We're going to be using the same thing and same place that we have been using it, just to give you an example. See, this is, once you get really good, you can make this code specifically, is, as you can see, 867 lines of code long. And before that you go, this is too hard, this is a lot. As you can see, there's a lot of notes in here. So you rocket launch and extra animation, which has been shrunk down, all these lines of code. Right. But you can see this is pretty cool, and it's all been done by one person. I'm gonna credit them. I could find their name. Okay. By this person, Saxman. I'm going to credit them because they did an amazing job with this. But I'm showing you what it looks like with this specific program, because that is the program that you will be using. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a place to put you guys. Next one. This is just a drawing, but it gives you a great example of how a bunch of shapes can turn into this, because this is just a circle with a different color circle with a different color circle, just over and over. And then this part is a bunch of lines, and it's a bunch of just shapes put together to make one long image. And this is a shorter piece of code. It is 152 lines long. This is just some extra space at the end. And this one is by the same, I'm gonna credit this person. This person right here, we're crediting people for their work here. And then this one, which is 620 lines of code long. And this one I think is one of the cooler ones, because as you see, it has the higher balloon rising up and down. It has the lighthouse spinning in a circle. It has the sailboat that is going back and forth. And so do the clouds. But as you can see, it is just all a bunch of shapes and some simple things. So, and you will not be learning how to do anything this extreme. I say this is extreme solely because of the fact that it is clearly very detailed work. And if you want to, but it's really good to see, because this is just a great example of things that can be made in the same program that you will be using, which is this. So let me explain how this works. So you have right here, you'll see it has a 1 there rather than all the other bunch of numbers, because if you press enter, it will keep creating lines of code. So if I type in // that's going to leave a note. So I'll say // hi, welcome to my code. That is not spelled correct. I'll just put hi. So I'm going to go down to by pressing enter or whatever you have along those lines, and I'm going to be writing correct this. And the great thing about this is it tells you what each individual one of these are. See, the reason this has an asterisk or that little star by it is because you don't need to put it. If I wanted to round the corners of my rectangle, I could, but you don't need to. So I'm going to say rect 6 6 0 20 20. And then, oh no, looks like I'm missing a semicolon. And so it will tell you if there's a bug in your code. So I will, and oh, I put the wrong thing there. And now it works. So now you can see in this little corner, I have my little rectangle. So I'm going to so when I say it starts there, it starts at the top. It takes this top corner of my rectangle. This right here, this little corner, and that's what it actually is moving. So the great thing about this is you can have, it has the scroll bar, so you can see where it's at. So say I wanted to put it right around here, and I wanted to center it. So going from the top down, you can move that top corner right here to around the center. And I wanted to make this longer, and I want to make it a little longer this way. But now it's not center, so I have to move it back on the X this way. And say now I want to draw an ellipse that goes on top of my box. Now I'm going to say I'll start off with some random number, 7, 18, 50, 50, because I want a ball. Oh no, I'm missing a semicolon. Don't forget to add it at the end. Now the ellipse, it doesn't start you from the top corner like all the others do. It actually starts you from the center. So the point you're moving around is actually the middle. And so the reason it asks you for the width and the height is because we have this elongated. So if you want to circle, those numbers have to be the same. So I'm going to keep it at 50-50 because I want my circles to be the same. And as you're noticing, hopefully, my circle overlaps. You cannot see the line of the rectangle through it because it was the most recently drawn thing. So if I have white on white, now you're going to be wondering, how do I color a shape? How do you color a shape? Well, how do you color a shape? Do we remember? We go back to our hex code. Not hex codes, our RGB, right? Our black, white, red, green, and blue. And we go, I don't know how to put those into code. And so if you're ever wondering how to do something and put it into code, you can just Google it. Or I'm gonna name this type program. I'm just gonna call it new program. Now, but down here tells you how to, write this code. So you can see, it tells you how to draw a line, how to do an arc, how to draw a shape that looks like this, how to put in images. We have begin shapes and end shapes. So begin shape actually helps you make those shapes that were in that one drawing, that of the calm, that one drawing of calm. But we're going to use the color one. So we're going to go color. And this is nice because you can pick on here. But how do you get it to color a shape? How do you get it to color a shape? Well, you are going to actually replace that color with fill. But now, how do I tell it what color to fill my shape with? Like, how do I tell it what shape to fill with color? Well, you think, okay, draw and write another line of code after it. And you'd be correct. So if we don't actually want this rectangle, but we want that circle to be colored, then we would put this line of code. We're going to copy and then paste it below it. But now we want this rectangle to be red. So we're going to go above it and draw and write the line of code, fill with, let's say, I'm thinking, how about we do bright red? So as you can see, you have the 25500. But sometimes when you're going here, you're like, I want the very specific shade of green that is the most green that a green can be. So sometimes you want to write in the number yourself. And sometimes when you mess up like that, you have to just rewrite the line of code. So if you write a 0, it's going to fill in as black. But if you write 255, it's going to fill in automatically as white. So to get around that, we'll go 0, 255, 0. That's going to get us the most green. What if we want the most blue? Well, you followed that process and you go 0, 0, 255. Any questions so far? Okay. Tell me if I'm ever going too fast. I understand I'm a fast talker. So since we're going to be drawing eventually with this, which is what you came here to do, learn how to animate something. We're going to get to animate actually moving things around a little bit later. We're going to want to get comfortable first with making the drawings first. And sometimes, and then there's also things like buttons, but most of the time we don't want to use, buttons are actually a really easy way to get around things. And animation also, while learning the process of animation, you also learn how to make buttons. And buttons are wonderful things, but buttons turn things into games. For example, if I go here, you see that this has no buttons, but if we go to and this person's really nice and they have answered questions in the comments. But if we wanted to go to see if people have made any spin-offs, which is where people have edited things themselves and created them, sometimes you can go to this courses and you go to computer programming. And then you scroll down to the bottom and you see browse projects. And these are all things other people have made. And so see, we have this game. It's called Dragon Riders. And you can see this person has put in 595 lines of code for this game. And buttons mean you can move the characters around. I'm using my right and left key to get this done. And that's an example of buttons at work. But you're probably looking for something that is an actual button, like you click on it and it turns into something. And those are used in computer games all the time. And this is one that has a lot more games. This is 512 lines of code long, and it's called Beach Run. And as you can see, the little character moves around and you can speed him up, and it's very much like Temple Run type stuff. And the but I'm going to press restart. You see it has buttons. You hover your mouse over it, it becomes darker, and you can click the different buttons and they'll do different things. And that's how I used to get around doing actually making the animations myself, because most of the time I would put buttons in there just to be like, oh, look at it. Isn't it more impressive of a project? Look, there's moving parts, you can click around in it. When sometimes not having buttons is the most, how do you say it? Impressive part of it. See, when I go here, you can see there's so many different things on that. And there's math, and there's date and time. But and then we'll learn how to put text here. So we're gonna go down here and we're gonna see, hey, that's how you put text in it. So instead of just having this be the notes and being like, hi, how are you today? And waiting for the people to go into the code and see something that they might never see, you can put text. Now I tend to put, this is how I tend to write things, and then I write the words in the side of it. So I go, hi, How are you today? And then you have to go comma. And then you're going to say some random coordinates. That's what I like to do. And then it says, oh no, you have forgotten to type things in. Because now it is telling me I've done something wrong, and I go, where did I do something wrong? And I go, and it says, you have forgotten to use a comma between your parameters. And I go, where did I lose this comma? And it's saying in here. So now I've got to figure out, say, where do I put these parameters? And sometimes we just can't figure it out. And what do you do when you cannot figure it out? Oh, now it's saying I've forgotten a comma. Sometimes, and it's like, you've forgotten it in your message. And I'm just like, where did I put this comma that I'm not supposed to? And then you realize that it's something simple you forgot to do, such as put quotation marks around the text you are writing. So when you're writing text, you got to remember, put the quotation marks around it. Otherwise, you might just miss it. But you also notice that, hey, my text is in blue. Why is my text in blue? I didn't want it to be in blue. And when you're writing text, you don't necessarily need that. But you also have to make sure you don't necessarily need the how long and how wide it is. But I want this moved in the middle. So I am going to say put the parameters back on. And I'm going to move it down here. And I'm going to slash and make a note to myself. This is the text. And this is the shapes. Or I'm going to put drawing. And then we're going to make sure we put fill. And then we're going to make the text black, because we're going to do standard text. And now we have a green rectangle with a blue square on top of it with words. Now, if you wanted these words to be behind the rectangle, you would take this and you would copy, and you would come here and then you would paste it. And now we get rid of that. And now the text is gone, but it's not really gone because it's beneath our rectangle. So if we want this text to be showing, we're going to copy it and we're going to paste it. And we're going to get rid of this here because we don't need that. And now it's on top of our rectangle. Any questions? Okay. Now, if you want some time to go do this yourself after class, is a great time to do that because we're going to continue on. And some of these things are going to be much simpler than others, such as point. Point is going to be, we're going to put this under here because we're going to keep things together, and there's going to be 2 line spots on this. And so it's going to be, say, 60 and 90. And that point you're not going to be able to see because it is tiny. It's 1 pixel big. But we're going to go click the point and see what else it has to say. Oh, we drew a point, but we forgot stroke rate. What is stroke rate? Well, stroke rate tells you how large that point is. So we're going to go stroke. I am messing up with this. Sometimes you just gotta copy and paste things because my spelling today is not, it's not doing so hot. And before anybody tries to say that's plagiarism, it is not. Plagiarizing code is when you do large segments of code without crediting the author. So if you were in theory to go to this person's code, and you were to go, I really want just to get all of this code. I just want all of it. And you copied it. And then you went, I'm just gonna paste it right on in. That would be copying code. That would be the plagiarism aspect. That is right. And we don't want to do plagiarism. That was so loud. I did not know there was noise with this. But and we don't want to plagiarize code because plagiarizing code is bad. And if you don't plagiarize in school, and you shouldn't plagiarize when it comes to creative works in code because people put hours into their work, and you don't want to do that. So back to this. So now we've just got a bunch of shapes on the board, and we're not sure what we're going to do with them, but maybe we're going to stack. We're going to put this on the bottom. Don't know why, that's what we're feeling today. Now we're thinking, what is the image? Does it give you images? Do you have to create them yourself? Yes, like you do. But when you see profile pictures, like when you think of when you go off Zoom and then and you don't want your camera showing, but you have a picture. Well, that would have to be coded separately. That is important. And so the code isn't going to recreate that image itself. It's just going to insert the image. It's not going to have a computer in a split second come up with all the code on the spot. It doesn't have somebody doing it by hand. It just inserts the image and it goes, here it is. It is also why images can't be retouched once they're blurred to an extent. Like it can be retouched, it can be made clear. But once it's of bad quality, it usually does not get better. And so the reason, and I'm trying not to get too complicated on you when it comes to this because you're beginners, that's why you came to this course. But when you're drawing code, you want to say it in the most simple way possible for not only yourself later, but also for anybody who is looking at your code who wants to modify it, and for later, because there are many times when even professional coders will look back on their work and they'll go, what did I mean? when I said that. And you want to avoid going back and going, what did I mean when I said draw a circle 3 times? So that's why we have the 2 slashes. And the reason we are using this program, the one that I sent in the link, is because, like I said earlier, it is free, and it is in JavaScript, which is the language that you use it. It also has many other resources, such as the classes that are there that you can get for free, that are just like quick things. And most of all, it works with JavaScript, and you have this. So I want to set a background color, and I want it here. So we're going to go / background to tell us that this is the background, this is what is going underneath everything. And you don't always have to do this. I just do. It's part of me when I code. I always like to make a bajillion notes to myself because I am afraid of messing something up and going, oh no, where did I go wrong? Because the computer sees / and then it goes, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to that. So, and the nice thing about Khan Academy is it fills in for you. So I'm really thinking of actually having this. And then rather than having to make this shape by itself, I'm really thinking I want to make this stroke, this point bigger, and make this rectangle no longer look exactly like a rectangle, but instead look like more like a unique shape. And I also want to modify this rectangle so it is a more like perfect shape. So I'm going to move this over a little bit and then move it up in the space. And then we're going to move the text down. We're also going to move this point a little bit more this way. And now my shape looks a little bit like this. Any questions, any concerns, anything you want to know more about? I'll leave the floor to you for a minute. Okay. Cool. Thank you for responding. Moving on. Yes. So you want to get into, you want to learn how to animate things, right? And I said we would be getting into that, but since you guys don't seem to have questions, I think we can start working into that. Is that okay with everyone? Yes, okay. Cool, thank you. Now, we see that there is stuff involving time. So say I'm going to put hour. Yeah, I'm missing a semicolon. And that means nothing to this computer, you see. I'm actually going to get rid of this background so things show up on it. And we're also just going to get rid of this because this is just ugly. this hour. And that just tells the computer what time it is. So that doesn't actually help us. So, but something that is helpful is this draw function. We're going to go, now let's explore what the draw function is. The draw function allows this to happen. And that is helpful. So let me explain how this works. So it sets the initial variables to values that you will animate over time. So we have variable x, and that var stands for variable, which is the things that change. If we're thinking y equals mx plus b, that is a function, just like this draw is a function. And so it tells you, first it's going to start off by telling you the background is white. And it's going to draw the background as white every single time, because if we get rid of this background white, it's just going to do that. And it's just going to draw, and it's going to draw, it's going to draw. We don't want that. So we replace the background with, and we're going to put it as white because we don't want that background to change. We want that background to keep repeating itself because it is going to slowly, as you can see, this changing anything in this code dramatically changes the outcome. So this moves it across the canvas, getting taller. So it is the x, which is the 0, plus 1, and this is 200, which tells it how, where to start up and down on the canvas. So it's going to start in the center. And then this 30, if you edit the 30, it's going to tell you where it's going to start widthwise. And then this is the exciting part, okay? Listen in. Moving this number around, right, tells the canvas how long it's going to start. And then it's going to be plus x divided by 3. Now, if we change this 3, make it 24. That means it's going to start off big, and it's not going to change much, but it's going to grow. We're going to move this back down. We're going to see what the difference is. Say 57. And it doesn't do much. But that divided by 3. So it's 165 plus blank divided by whatever number. So we're gonna move it back to 7. That's how much it's gonna grow by. So you can see it's slowly growing on the canvas. So we're gonna shrink this again. So it's a little bit more obvious that it's growing. See, you can see that it's growing. Ever so slightly, but it's growing. And now moving down, we have x plus plus. Does anyone have any guess what x plus plus is? Anyone? Okay, x plus plus is how much it is increasing after each function. So this is just going to repeat over and over and over again and forever. So in theory, after I press restart, it is just going to keep going forever off the screen. It's not going to loop around, it's just going to keep going. And that's the beauty of this. So let me explain the features of this draw function. So you write draw, right? You have draw, which is going to tell you to draw. And draw equals. It doesn't have to be spaced apart like this, but most people space it apart like this just for ease of reading, and it's easier on the eyes. And then function, parentheses, open, close. So there's nothing going in those parentheses. And then a bracket, an open bracket, because at the end, you'll see there's a closed bracket with a semicolon. So each line of code has a semicolon, except for this one, because you don't want to end the line of code there. You want to end it here, because when I close that, that's one function, and then I'm going to open it again. So what this says is it keeps it open. It's going to do all of this, and then it's going to end it here. And then it's going to do all of this and then end it here. All of this, end it here, and so forth. So when it has, so it's going to go 0 to 161.89 x divided by 7. 1 to 161.89, 1 divided by 7. 2, and so on, because this is going to add 2 to it every single time. Rather than having to write out a longer line of code, you can just go x plus plus, y plus plus. That's the beauty of JavaScript. So say we wanted, so we're going to go back to ours, and we're going to go draw equals, and it puts it in right there for us. So we're going to say ellipse. And then we're going to go. And as you can see, it's indented, or it's not like this, but it's got a lot of space here. That is to make it easier to read. So we're going to go ellipse. And then we're going to say, but let's put out our variables. I'm just going to call it my vars. So I'm going to go var x, y, x plus 1, y plus 1, semicolon. We're going to do var equals x var x. Thought I was doing something wrong. Equals 50, semicolon. Var y equals 50, semicolon. So now it's just drawn that. So we're going to go down here and we're going to go x plus plus, semicolon. And now it's going to go on forever. And then we're going to go y plus plus, semicolon. And now it's going to do that forever. And so we're going to restart it. And now it just does that. We don't want that. No, we forgot. I'm going to get rid of this text. We forgot our background. So I'm going to go. And like I said, you don't always have to do the notes. It just makes it easier. So I'm going to go background. Okay, we're going to do red. So as you can see, It is getting larger and larger and larger until it goes off the page. What if we don't want the background to be red? We want it to be, say, black. So now it's just increasing. And you go, what if I only did 1 plus on each? And it's like, show me where I'm missing a semicolon. It's missing all these things. Yes, because the x plus plus is the 1. Adds 1. And you might be like, oh, there's 2 pluses add 2. Well, let's see. No, it does not. 2 pluses adds 1, and that's the only shortcut in coding. But if you wanted to do that, but if you wanted to increase it, you could do var x equals x plus 2. You can restart it. And now it is moving down. It looks a little different. And it's going to keep increasing. But now we also want y to follow the same process. So we're going to go var y equals x. Let's do equals x. Let's do equals x. See what happens. Nothing. Nothing happens. Because it doesn't know what it's doing. So we're going to replace that with y plus 3. We're going to restart it. And now it still doesn't know what it's doing. How do you solve the code that doesn't know what it's doing? And most people would just be like, oh, just change this to y plus plus, because that's what it was originally. And that works, but that still doesn't tell you how to get the y larger. And sometimes you just have to go x plus plus, and then change this to y. And now it's doing its thing again, but it's going a different way. What if we change this to 1? Will it? Then it will just do the same thing. So if you want the ever increasing shape, it is your best bet to either keep testing things out or go y plus plus and x plus plus. And then I've forgotten a semicolon. Any question? No, okay. Well, that is kind of all I had planned for today. We're 5 minutes before the end. So if you have any comments, anything you want to learn, anything you want to note for the future, anything you want me to remember myself, anything you're just wondering in general, you can feel free to ask.